The Unseen Stare. Chapter 1. The Glaring Silence. I stepped off the bus, satchel slung over my shoulder and eyes scanning the quiet streets of Oakwood for any sign of life. It had been a year since I'd left this place behind to attend college, chasing dreams that now felt as elusive as the mist clinging to the mountains beyond town limits. The campus bustle was far removed from this sleepy hamlet where everyone knew your name and every conversation felt like an interrogation, waiting for answers they never asked out loud. After a tumultuous freshman year, I needed solace in what once provided comfort. My childhood home on Oakwood Lane. As the engine rumbled away, I breathed deeply of the crisp autumn air, nostalgia's familiar grip tightening around my heart. The same old maple tree stood sentinel outside our house, branches bare from winter's chill. The walk felt shorter than I remembered. Time had a way of stretching and compressing memories. Leaves crunched beneath each step as they danced in the faint breeze. My stomach growled with hunger for more than just home-cooked meals. Familiarity. As I passed by Johnson's old bookstore, Mrs. Johnson smiled and waved through the dusty window. "Welcome back, Alex." Her eyes seemed to linger longer than necessary. In Oakwood, people kept their distance unless they needed something. Now, I felt like a relic from another era, out of place among those who'd moved on with lives I once knew. My cell phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Dinner at 6. Her words always came with warmth and precision, comfort wrapped in routine. Inside, the air clung to the musty scent of old memories. Dust particles danced through sunbeams, casting eerie shadows across walls that witnessed both my birth and childhood laughter. The creaking floorboards protested my return as I dropped my bag. Mom's voice echoed from the kitchen. "I made your favorite." She plated a plate of spaghetti with meatballs, an attempt to bridge the gap between the years gone by. We sat at the dinner table, her gaze flickering between me and the TV where news anchors debated politics, a world away from Oakwood's tranquil grip on our lives. The first few days blended together, catching up with friends over coffee, rekindling my job at the local diner, and relearning local routines. Nights fell softly, darkness punctuated only by the occasional passing car or hooting owl. Yet, a shiver crept in when I noticed people avoiding eye contact, turning quickly as if fearing judgment from my gaze. They'd always been polite, but distant. Now it was as though they were trying not to be seen at all. My reflection stared back from the kitchen window, a tired face, haunted eyes, and matted hair tied in a messy bun. Then there were the stairs I couldn't quite see. I'd catch them out of the corner of my eye, only for no one to be there when I turned. It started small, a flicker of movement from the edge of perception. One evening, under the amber glow of streetlights, I headed home after closing up the diner. The night was cool, the kind that promised sleeplessness and starry skies. Oakwood Lane felt too quiet. Shadows cast by towering oaks seemed to reach out, fingers grasping for me as I quickened my pace. The trees parting, a thicket of bushes near our yard stood at attention. My breath caught in my throat when a shadow materialized within their midst. A figure crouched low and still. Heart hammering, I approached slowly, hand on the doorknob. As I reached it, they vanished into nothingness. No leaves crunched behind them, no rustle of clothing or sign they'd ever been there at all. My skin chilled in the cooling air as I stepped inside, locking the door. In my room, shadows played tricks on me until I fell asleep to the lullaby of rain. Days passed with an unsettling rhythm. At the diner, Sarah noticed it too. "People acting strange," she whispered over the counter. She spoke under her breath, never looking directly at me. Outside, clouds swirled with a life of their own, before parting to reveal a peculiar sight. The town's logo emblazoned in crimson paint across our front door, a crude drawing of an owl perched on an oak tree branch. Symbols I recognized from the local folklore. The owl signified wisdom, but here it glinted with malice. In that moment, my perception shifted. Was Oakwood watching me, or was I losing my grip? As darkness descended, I ventured out to examine it closer. Moonlight painted silver paths through the bushes where I'd seen the figure. Leaves whispered as if sharing secrets in hushed tones. The logo blurred and reformed before my eyes. Behind it stood a dark silhouette. A branch snapped close by. With racing thoughts, I reached for the doorknob only to find it stuck, then free. No one there. The next day's diner chatter centered on a recent string of burglaries and vandalism in town. Some blamed it on a restless spirit, while others whispered of a trespasser. I searched my house cautiously when darkness fell, yet nothing. In the stillness of night, a second logo appeared on our garage door, identical to the first. It was as if something wanted me aware, but why? The unblinking gaze of an owl stared back from the attic window. An unseen stare bore into me, and I fled downstairs. Under the thin blanket of dawn light, I resolved to find answers, no matter how unsettling they might be. Strange dreams plagued my sleep. A faceless figure, eyes that glowed like embers in darkness. An old house on Oakwood Lane's edge, where houses rarely grew. The abandoned residence had been for sale since I left. Whispers spoke of curses and legends within its walls. Chapter 2. The Tangled Web. Sarah joined me at the diner, her curiosity piqued by my tales of symbols and suspicious glances. "It started after you returned," she whispered, eyes darting to the door as if they might eavesdrop on our conversation. The new waitress, Emily, hovered nearby, ears pricked. I sensed an undercurrent in her gaze I'd never seen before. I wanted answers that weren't readily available at the diner counter or town gossip. If Oakwood's legend held a truth, it had to be hidden. Sunday afternoon found me at the old house, the paint-peeling facade telling tales of neglect. The front door hung off its hinges with an inviting, haunted grin. With each step into darkness, shadows seemed to move around me. I nearly cried out as they coalesced into a figure in a tattered coat and fedora, a relic from another era. He introduced himself as Mr. Finch, his aged eyes studying me. The man spoke of Oakwood's history, secrets buried long before I was born. The abandoned house he mentioned was once the Thorne residence, infamous for dark happenings during the 1950s. A family tragedy marred by murder-suicide. On the night of their youngest son's birthday, Harold Thorne slit his wife and child's throats in a rage fueled by possession or madness. Legends varied on that front. His spirit roamed, seeking vengeance. Finch believed it still lingered, watching those who ventured close enough to stir the past. Shadows danced along the street as I left the diner with him. On our way back, Emily followed us, lingering at the edge of sight lines. "Don't go poking around old houses," she cautioned, breathless. In a flash of insight, Finch recalled Thorne's journals, tucked away since his disappearance. The key, he claimed, would reveal what I sought. At night, under the porch light, the symbols returned on our garage door. A glowing owl, and next to it, an arrow toward the Thorne house. The following morning, Sarah joined me as we unearthed Thorne's journals. Leaves crunched behind us. Emily stood there, her eyes aglow in the dark. "This is a bad idea," she said before vanishing into the night. I found entries of possessions and rituals, an owl carving on the wall. Finch believed it was all just superstition until that fateful night. A family member, the boy who'd fled his father's bloodbath, returned home to find his mother dead, the word beware scrawled in crimson on the door. An eerie echo of my bedroom message. Our investigation grew more urgent as the owl symbol spread across town, always pointing toward Oakwood Lane. Sarah and I pored over Thorne's accounts at her place when a scratching began outside the window. My heart thumped in my chest as a low, guttural voice echoed from next door. Beware! The wind picked up, leaves scuttled on the ground like unseen hands. Scharast door schwung open. A shadow darted inside, her gasp turning to screams as I entered room after darkened room. It found us in the attic, a single candle casting eerie silhouettes. Atop an ancient desk, the Thorne journal lay open, pages fluttering with every breath. "What's coming up?" Sarah asked, trembling, eyes wide. The answer whispered back, death. On our backs, figures moved toward us through the darkness. Harold and his victims, faces twisted in perpetual torment. I grabbed a heavy candlestick, advancing on them. They dissipated into nothingness as we reached the door. Outside, Emily sat in shadows, an unblinking gaze meeting mine. We should leave Oakwood alone. She retreated, leaving us to decipher what was real and what fevered dreams created. But there were nights now, with an unsettling presence, feeling watched. In sleep, I dreamt of Harold's madness, his wife's desperate eyes. Then they stared back, unblinking eyes, like Emily's, burning embers in the dark. Sarah found Finch dead that morning, face up on his porch, eyes alight and skin charred to ash. Emily vanished with my bedroom window shattered. I dared not look back as I fled toward the car, Sarah clinging tight. In the rearview mirror, I saw an owl perched on Finch's chest, black glass eyes piercing through the windshield. An unsettling feeling settled in me as we sped away from Oakwood Lane. A hasty escape from what haunted us both. The manor house loomed behind. In town, I learned Mr. Thorne had died decades ago under suspicious circumstances. His son, Malcolm, returned to find his mother dead and father's crime scene. The boy left, the diner owner said, voice trembling. He fled here. Our own home door opened, creaking with an unhuman ease. In a bedroom window, Emily huddled. Her eyes smoldered like embers as she whispered my name. A gust of wind extinguished my heart's beat. In its place, I heard a low, raspy voice. Welcome back. Chapter 3. The Final Gaze. Sarah remained steadfast, even when Malcolm Thorne materialized at the door that night. The very boy from legend and nightmares. His mother had been alive when he fled, then met her end in our yard. A family curse or malevolent spirit. Embers now lit Sarah's dark eyes as she whispered my name once more before vanishing with an unnatural speed. I clung to Malcolm, pleading for help. We fled the town in his rusted sedan until dawn, leaving Oakwood and its secrets behind us. The engine sputtered. Trees became a blur outside my window. A car door slammed. Sarah was gone, dragged back by whatever haunted this place. Malcolm spoke of the Thorne legacy. Beware scrawled on her bedroom wall in blood that like crimson. His tale of unblinking eyes and unending grief still echoed in the darkness when Emily materialized behind us. Her face a smoldering ember. In that car, I faced Harold's face for an instant before he vanished into smoke. On all fours, Sarah crawled from the trunk as Malcolm pulled me out. Emily watched, black glass eyes reflecting moonlight, skin like charred wood. Malcolm, she hissed on our escape down Oakwood Lane. Sarah wasn't here. We couldn't have lost her. I turned back to face whatever I feared most. Harold Thorne's face in the rearview mirror, smoldering, his voice a low growl that echoed into my nightmares. Malcolm and Emily, both once victims of cursed bloodlines, offered no comfort as they merged into one being before me, their flesh burning away. The night wore on. I drove through rain and blood to stain dawn until we reached Sarah's family farm, the manor house looming in front of us. Her bedroom door opened with a dreadful shriek. An ember staring back, a hand emerged from shadows, then another, until Malcolm stood over us, skin seared. They whispered in unison, "Beware." Our car died under the weight of a burning sky, as it had since we'd left Oakwood Lane. In the distance, I saw flames engulfing our small home, while an ember's pulse echoed with a low whisper. "Welcome back." I crouched before Emily, pleading for forgiveness in her eyes. They turned black glass at me, skin searing away to reveal Malcolm's charred visage. Harold appeared beside us both, flesh melting off his bones until he was nothing but burning bones and smoke. The Thorne family curse claimed us all, a legacy of unblinking eyes and unending grief. In the morning, I stared into those eyes. Emily's eyes now in Sarah's form. They told me they'd never leave, an ember that only burned brighter as I backed away from them on trembling legs.